Daniel Carter sat quietly in the large conference chamber of Earth's United Diplomatic Corps. The morning light spilled through the tall glass windows, reflecting off polished metal walls that seemed designed to remind every visitor that Earth was no longer just a planet. It was part of a galactic community. Yet even in this modern setting, Daniel felt out of place. He was not the most experienced diplomat, nor the most celebrated. At 28, he was still considered young, but his skill for listening and bridging gaps had earned him quiet respect among his peers. The news he had received only hours earlier still felt unreal. He had been chosen to represent Earth at an alien royal wedding. The message had come directly from the High Council. The royal family of Zerathia, one of the most powerful empires in the Orion Arm, had extended a rare invitation. They wished for a human presence at the wedding of the king's eldest son. It was not simply a social event. It was a gesture of trust, a way to display unity between old empires and new arrivals like Earth. Daniel knew this was more than a party. It was history in the making. The journey begins. A week later, Daniel boarded a silver-white diplomatic shuttle that rose silently from Earth's atmosphere. He watched his homeworld shrink into a glowing sphere below, a mix of blue oceans and white clouds. For a moment, his chest tightened. Representing Earth was a heavy responsibility. He carried not just his own name but the weight of an entire species. The voyage to Zerathia lasted several days through faster-than-light corridors. Daniel spent his time studying everything he could about the alien culture. The Zerathians were known for their towering crystal cities, their warrior traditions, and their deep respect for destiny and prophecy. Their society balanced between honor and ceremony, between old traditions and modern galactic influence. Remember, his mentor had once told him, never treat a Zerathian ceremony lightly. To them, every gesture carries meaning. Daniel repeated those words as he practiced the proper bow, the correct greeting phrases, and the order of noble titles. Still, he knew mistakes were possible. Arrival at Zerathia. The shuttle emerged from the final corridor into Zerathian space. Daniel pressed his hand against the glass and his eyes widened. Zerathia's homeworld glowed beneath him, a jewel of silver seas and vast emerald continents. Above the planet floated dozens of orbital rings shimmering with light, connected like a crown of stars. Giant warships drifted silently nearby, symbols of the Empire's power. The shuttle descended, entering the atmosphere with a smooth hum. Daniel saw sprawling cities of translucent towers that reached toward the clouds, their surfaces alive with dancing light. Bridges of energy connected them while flying transports glided gracefully between. Gardens floated in the sky, each glowing with alien flora. He had read descriptions, but nothing compared to seeing it with his own eyes. Zerathia was not just advanced. It was beautiful, almost otherworldly in its elegance. At the spaceport, a group of armored guards awaited him. Their tall frames, nearly 8 feet high, wore ceremonial silver armor that gleamed in the sun. Their faces were partly hidden beneath crested helmets, but their eyes, golden and bright, studied Daniel with curiosity. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a deep, resonant voice. "Daniel Carter of Earth, you are honored as guest of the royal house. Come, the king awaits." Daniel bowed as he had practiced. His voice was steady, though his heart raced. "I thank the king for his welcome. It is my honor to be here." The guard gave a slow nod, a sign of approval. The Palace of Light Daniel was escorted through the capital city, and every moment felt like stepping into a legend. The streets shimmered with crystal stone, reflecting sunlight in colors he had never seen. Alien citizens lined the paths, tall and graceful, their garments woven with threads that seemed to glow faintly. They watched the human guest with open curiosity. Some smiled, others whispered. Finally, they reached the palace. It stood upon a mountain carved into terraces, rising higher than any structure Daniel had seen. Its walls were not built from stone or metal, but from living crystal, growing upward like a natural formation shaped by artistry. Great banners of gold and white flowed in the wind, each carrying the royal crest, a blazing star above a shield. Inside the palace was alive with light. Halls stretched endlessly, filled with statues of past rulers, glowing fountains, and murals painted with alien starlight. Musicians played soft instruments that resonated like a chorus of voices carried on the wind. Daniel was guided into a grand chamber where the king himself awaited meeting. The king of Zerathia was an imposing figure, tall even for his kind. His robes shimmered like woven light, and a crown of crystal rested upon his brow. His eyes glowed with wisdom, but also with the stern authority of a leader who carried centuries of tradition. Daniel bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I bring greetings from Earth and our council. May your house know peace and strength." The king's voice was calm yet powerful, carrying through the hall without effort. "Daniel Carter, you are far from your home, yet you stand with steady heart. We welcome you as honored guest. You shall witness a union not only of two souls but of two great houses. May it be remembered in the stars." The court echoed with approval. Nobles in brilliant robes nodded, their eyes still measuring the human among them. Daniel straightened, meeting the king's gaze. He sensed layers beneath those words. This was not only a welcome, it was a test. The king wanted to see if the human would falter, but Daniel held steady, whispers of prophecy. That evening, Daniel was shown to his chambers overlooking the city. From his balcony, he could see the twin suns setting over the crystal towers, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold. It was breathtaking, yet he could not rest. Servants moved quietly through the palace, preparing for the coming wedding. Daniel overheard fragments of conversation, words about prophecy, about how the wedding was not only political but spiritual. Some whispered of an ancient prediction, that a stranger from the stars would one day be bound to the royal bloodline. Daniel dismissed it at first. Surely such tales were nothing more than myths. Yet the way the servants spoke, the reverence in their voices told him that to the Zerathians, prophecy was not fantasy, it was truth waiting to reveal itself. The night before the wedding, as darkness fell, Daniel was invited to a small pre-ceremony gathering. The royal family was present, dressed in robes of shining color. There he caught his first glimpse of Princess Serenia, the king's daughter. She stood tall, her golden eyes calm yet distant. Her attire was woven with starlight patterns, and her presence seemed to command the room effortlessly. Unlike others, she did not stare at Daniel with curiosity. She studied him with quiet intensity as though weighing his very soul. Their eyes met briefly. She gave the slightest nod, a gesture of acknowledgement, not warmth. Daniel felt a chill. He realized then that he was no longer just a guest. He had stepped into the center of something far larger than himself. Closing of Part 1 that night, Daniel lay awake, the sounds of alien music drifting through the palace halls. He thought of Earth, of the millions of lives he represented, of the fragile peace between species. Tomorrow he would witness a wedding. Unlike any other, he did not yet know that his role would change everything, that fate itself had drawn him into a story written in the stars long before he was born, and in the shadows of the palace, unseen eyes watched him. The whispers of prophecy grew louder. The day of the royal wedding arrived with the rising of the twin suns. Their light bathed the capital city of Zerathia in gold and silver, turning the crystal towers into glowing pillars that reached the heavens. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. For this was not only the joining of two noble houses, but a symbol of strength for the empire. Daniel Carter stood on his balcony early that morning, staring at the sight. The air was cool, carrying the sound of distant bells that rang across the city. From the streets below, streams of citizens in bright garments moved toward the palace, singing songs in their deep, melodic language. Daniel felt the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders. He was only a guest, an observer, yet somehow his heart told him he was standing on the edge of something larger than history itself. The procession by mid-morning, Daniel was escorted to the Hall of Stars, the vast ceremonial chamber where the wedding would be held. He walked with other dignitaries through long crystal corridors, each glowing with inner light. Guards lined the halls, their armor gleaming like polished silver. When the doors of the hall opened, Daniel gasped softly. The chamber was unlike anything he had imagined. It stretched upward into a dome where constellations shone as if the night sky itself had been captured inside. The floor was a mirror of black stone, polished so smoothly it reflected the stars above. At the center stood a raised platform carved into the shape of a star, upon which the sacred rituals would be performed. Rows of guests filled the hall, nobles in robes shimmering with woven light, foreign ambassadors from neighboring systems and warriors wearing ceremonial crests. Their voices blended into a low hum of anticipation. Daniel was guided to a seat among the honored guests near the front. He noticed curious glances from other species, scaled beings, winged figures, and towering shapes he could not name. But it was the Zerathians who watched him most closely. Their golden eyes seemed to weigh every movement, every breath. The bride and groom music filled the hall, played on instruments that seemed half-living, their strings glowing with energy. The king entered first, followed by his son, the groom, dressed in robes of white and silver, his posture tall and proud. The crowd cheered with voices like thunder. Then came Princess Serenia, walking with slow, graceful steps. She was not the bride, yet her presence stole the attention of the hall. Her attire shimmered with threads of starlight, and her golden eyes carried a depth that made Daniel's breath catch. She did not smile, but her calm dignity seemed to command even the stars above. Daniel realized that the people did not only look at the wedding couple, they looked at her, as though she carried something greater than the moment itself. The sacred orbs. At the heart of the ceremony lay the ritual of the orbs, an ancient tradition passed through countless generations. From a great chest, priests lifted 3 glowing orbs, each larger than a human head, floating gently above their hands. They glowed with a living light, blue, green, and white, symbols of life, unity, and destiny. The high priest spoke, his voice deep and resonant. These orbs have shone since the dawn of our empire. They judge the truth of union, the strength of hearts, and the will of destiny. The groom stepped forward, placing his hand upon the blue orb. It shone brightly, pulsing with approval. The bride followed, her hand upon the green orb, which glowed in harmony. The hall filled with applause, the ritual proceeding as expected. Then came the final step, the orb of destiny glowing with soft white light. It was to be touched together by the bride and groom, sealing their bond in the eyes of prophecy. The accident as the priests carried the white orb forward, something unexpected occurred. The orb flickered, its glow shifting as though searching. The bride and groom placed their hands upon it, but the light only dimmed. Whispers spread across the hall. This had never happened before. The high priest frowned. The orb does not answer. Perhaps there is doubt in the bond. Murmurs rose, uneasy and sharp. The king's expression hardened. Daniel, seated nearby, felt a strange pull, like a soft current brushing against his skin. His chest tightened, and before he realized, he had stepped forward. "Wait," he whispered, his hand brushing against the orb. The moment his skin touched its surface, the white light flared brilliantly, flooding the hall with radiance so pure that the guests shielded their eyes. The orb rose higher, spinning, releasing waves of energy that filled every corner of the chamber. The crowd gasped, voices rising in shock and awe. The high priest fell to his knees. The prophecy. It has come to pass. The prophecy revealed confusion spread like wildfire. The king rose, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Explain this." The high priest's voice trembled. "My king, the orb of destiny has chosen. It has not bound the bride and groom. It has bound the outsider, this human, to the royal line." The hall erupted. Nobles shouted in disbelief, some in anger, others in excitement. The foreign ambassadors exchanged hurried words. The crowd's voices became a storm of sound. Daniel stood frozen, his heart racing. "Wait, I didn't mean it was an accident." But his words were drowned by the chorus of Zerathian voices. The priests chanted ancient lines, confirming the prophecy that had been spoken long ago. From the stars beyond, one shall come, touched by the light of destiny. To the royal blood they shall be bound, and together they shall guide the empire in times of shadow. All eyes turned to Daniel, and then to Princess Serenia. Serenia's reaction. Princess Serenia did not speak immediately. She stood still, her eyes locked on Daniel with intensity that pierced through the chaos. Slowly she stepped forward, her gaze calm but sharp as a blade. "So, the orb has chosen you," she said softly, her voice carrying across the hall. "A human, an outsider." Daniel swallowed hard, trying to find words. I did not intend." "You did not intend," Serenia repeated, her tone unreadable. She turned toward the high priest. "But the orb does not make mistakes." Gasps spread again. Some nobles protested loudly, declaring the union impossible. Others shouted for silence. The king raised his hand and the hall fell quiet. He studied Daniel for a long moment, his golden eyes deep as the stars. Finally he spoke. "Then destiny has spoken. The human is bound to my house. The orb has chosen, and Zerathia will not deny prophecy. The aftermath of the ceremony. The wedding itself ended in confusion, its purpose shattered by the unexpected turn of events. The groom and his bride were quietly escorted away, their union postponed until further decision. But the focus remained on Daniel. Guards surrounded him, not as prisoners but as protectors. Nobles whispered furiously, their voices sharp with suspicion or hope. Daniel felt dizzy, as though he had stepped into a dream. Only hours ago he had been a guest. Now the entire empire looked at him as part of their destiny. Princess Serenia walked beside him as they were escorted from the hall. Her expression was calm, but her eyes flickered with unspoken thoughts. Finally, she said, "You do not understand what has happened, do you?" Daniel shook his head. "No, I only touched it by mistake. I didn't want this." Her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, not of amusement but of irony. No one wants prophecy, yet it comes whether we call it or not. Nightfall in the palace that night, the city was alive with whispers. Fires burned in the streets as citizens sang of destiny, while others worried what the union with a human might mean. Daniel sat alone in his chamber, staring at his trembling hands. He replayed the moment again and again, the orb's light, the voices, Serenia's gaze. His mind could not rest. When the door opened, he turned. Princess Serenia entered, her steps silent, her presence filling the room like starlight. "You should not be alone tonight," she said simply. Daniel rose. "I don't understand any of this." "Why me? I am just a diplomat." "Nothing more." She looked at him steadily. "The orb chose you. That is all that matters. To my people, you are now part of the royal destiny. Whether you believe it or not, the galaxy will treat it as truth." Daniel's voice lowered. "And you? Do you accept this?" Serenia paused. Her golden eyes softened just slightly. "Acceptance is not my choice, but I do not fear destiny. We will see if you are worthy of it." Closing of Part 2. The night deepened, and the city glowed beneath the twin moons. Daniel stood at his balcony again, but now the stars seemed closer, heavier as if pressing down upon him. He had come to Zerathia as a guest to witness a wedding. Now he was part of a prophecy older than he could understand, and somewhere deep within, though he tried to deny it, a small voice whispered that this was only the beginning. The palace of Zerathia did not sleep that night. The entire city seemed restless, as though the stars themselves had shifted in their places. The wedding that was meant to unite two noble houses had ended in confusion, and instead of joy, the people were left with whispers of prophecy. Daniel Carter sat in his chamber, staring at the faint glow of the crystal walls. His mind was restless. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the white orb bursting with light. He heard the high priest's trembling voice declaring destiny fulfilled. He saw the king's stern gaze and Princess Serenia's golden eyes, calm but sharp as blades. He told himself it was an accident. He had not meant to touch the orb. But in his heart he could not deny what he felt, the strange pull that had drawn him to it, as though something beyond himself had guided his hand. The council summons at dawn, messengers arrived. Daniel was summoned before the royal council, the ruling body of nobles and advisors who governed alongside the king. The council chamber was vast, its ceiling a dome of living crystal that shifted colors with the rising sun. Around a circular table sat a dozen nobles, each dressed in robes of power and tradition. Their golden eyes glimmered with sharp judgment as Daniel entered. Guards lined the walls, silent and unmoving. The king sat at the head of the chamber, his presence heavy with authority. Princess Serenia stood beside him, her face calm but unreadable. The first to speak was Lord Athamir, a noble whose voice carried sharpness like a blade. "This is madness," he declared, pointing toward Daniel. "A human cannot be part of our royal destiny. He is an outsider, a child among the stars. We risk everything if we allow this." Another noble, Lady Vera, raised her voice in opposition. "The prophecy is spoken. Are we greater than destiny? If the orb chose him, then he is chosen. To deny it is to defy the will of the stars." The chamber erupted in arguments, voices clashing like swords. Some nobles demanded Daniel be honored, others demanded his removal. Finally, the king raised his hand and silence fell. His golden eyes fixed upon Daniel. "You are at the center of this storm, human. Speak. Do you claim this destiny as your own?" Daniel hesitated. He felt every gaze piercing him, weighing him. He could not lie, but he also could not claim a crown he had never asked for. "I do not claim destiny," Daniel said slowly. "I never sought this. I came as a guest, nothing more. But the orb chose me, not by my will but by its own. If that means I must prove myself, then I will not run from it. But I cannot pretend to be something I am not. I am human. I am Daniel Carter." A murmur spread through the chamber. Some frowned, others nodded with reluctant respect. The king's gaze softened slightly. "Honest words," he said. "But honesty alone does not build trust. The people must see your worth or they will never accept you." A talk with Serenia after the council. Daniel walked through the palace gardens, their crystal flowers glowing softly in the morning light. He felt lost in thought, weighed down by the heavy burden placed upon him. Princess Serenia appeared beside him, moving with silent grace. For a while she walked without speaking, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the twin suns rose together. Finally she said, "You spoke well in the council. You did not pretend to be what you are not." That was wise. Daniel looked at her. "It doesn't change anything. Half of them want me gone. Half of them always want someone gone," she replied with a faint trace of irony. "That is the nature of politics. But you are not wrong. You must prove yourself. Without it, even my father's word cannot shield you." Daniel stopped walking. "And what about you? Do you believe the prophecy?" Serenia turned her golden eyes toward him. "Belief does not matter. The people believe. That is enough to shape reality. As for me," she paused, her voice lowering, "I do not trust easily. But I will watch. If you are truly chosen, I will know." Daniel met her gaze. And for a brief moment he saw not only a princess but a woman carrying the weight of her people's future. The dreams that night. Daniel's sleep was restless again. He dreamed of stars burning, of warships clashing in endless space. He saw Zerathians and humans fighting side by side against a shadow that swallowed light. In the dream, Princess Serenia stood beside him, her eyes glowing with fire, while his own hands held a blade of light he had never seen before. When he awoke, sweat covered his brow and his heart raced. He could not shake the feeling that the dreams were more than illusions, that they were warnings. The rising doubts days passed, and the city continued to buzz with whispers. Citizens gathered in the streets, some praising the prophecy, others fearful of it. Markets rang with songs of destiny, while alleys echoed with doubts. Foreign ambassadors sent urgent messages to their homeworlds. Some saw Earth's sudden tie to the royal family as a threat, others as an opportunity. Daniel's presence had changed the balance of power, and not everyone welcomed it. Even within the palace, he felt the divide. Some servants treated him with reverence, bowing as he passed. Others looked away, their faces stiff with distrust. Daniel kept to his studies, learning more of Zerathian history, language, and customs. He knew he needed every bit of knowledge to survive what was coming. An unexpected ally one afternoon, Daniel was approached by General Thalen, commander of the Zerathian Royal Guard. The general was a towering figure, his silver armor gleaming, his face stern but not unkind. "You are not a warrior," Thalen said bluntly, studying Daniel. "Yet you are bound to our princess. If danger comes, you must not stand helpless. You must learn." Daniel straightened. "Learn what?" Thalen's golden eyes narrowed. "To defend yourself, and to defend her." That evening, Daniel began training in the palace courtyards. The Zerathian style of combat was unlike anything he had known, fluid yet powerful, blending precision with grace. At first he stumbled, earning chuckles from soldiers who watched. But he pushed forward, his determination unbroken. General Thalen nodded in approval after each session. "Clumsy, but you do not quit. That is a good start." Confrontation in the shadows one night. As Daniel returned from training, he sensed he was being followed. The halls of the palace were quiet, but shadows lingered between the crystal pillars. Suddenly 3 figures stepped forward, nobles draped in dark robes, their faces hidden. Their voices were sharp with contempt. "You should not be here, human," one hissed. "Prophecy or not, you bring weakness to our blood." Daniel's voice steadied. "I did not choose this, but I will not run from it," the noble sneered. "Then fall with it." Before they could strike, a figure appeared, Princess Serenia, her golden eyes blazing. With a single command, palace guards rushed in, surrounding the conspirators. Serenia looked at Daniel, her face calm but fierce. "You see, not everyone wishes you to succeed. You must be ready for more than words in council chambers. Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. I understand. A shared moment later, Serenia met Daniel in the quiet of the palace observatory. The dome above opened to the night sky, revealing stars that glimmered like endless diamonds. You are not weak, Serenia said softly, breaking the silence. I saw how you stood, even knowing you could not win against them. That courage. Perhaps it is why the orb chose you. Daniel turned toward her. And yet you still doubt me. Serenia's lips curved in the faintest smile. Doubt is wisdom, but I doubt you less tonight. For a moment, the heavy walls between them seemed to soften. They stood side by side beneath the stars. Two lives bound together by destiny they could not escape. Closing of Part 3A's, the days turned to weeks. Daniel's presence in the palace became both a symbol of hope and a spark of division. The people argued, the nobles plotted, and whispers of unrest grew louder. But in the shadows, Daniel began to feel something else, a quiet strength building inside him, a determination that he was no longer only a guest. He was part of Zerathia now, and though he did not yet understand the full weight of prophecy, he knew one truth with certainty. Whatever destiny awaited him, he would not face it alone. Princess Serenia would walk that path beside him. The days following the council meeting were filled with tension. The prophecy had shaken the entire Zerathian Empire. Some nobles saw it as a chance for greatness, while others believed it would bring ruin. In the markets, citizens sang ballads of the starborn guest, while whispers of doubt lingered in the alleys. The king knew the empire could not stand divided. To settle the matter, he declared that Daniel Carter would face the trials of unity. These trials were ancient, older than the royal family itself. They had been designed to test courage, wisdom, and loyalty. No one could claim destiny without proving themselves in the eyes of the empire. When the announcement spread, the people gathered in excitement and fear. A human had never faced the trials. Some expected him to fail. Others wondered if destiny would guide him. Daniel himself felt the weight of it pressing on his chest like a stone. He was not a warrior, not a noble. He was only a diplomat from Earth. Yet now the eyes of a world and perhaps the galaxy itself were fixed upon him. The first trial, the gravity storm, the morning of the first trial arrived. Daniel was escorted to the Arena of Elements, a massive open ground carved from black crystal. Thousands of citizens filled the seats that rose like a mountain around it. The high priest's voice boomed. The first trial will test the courage of the chosen. He shall walk through the storm of shifting gravity, where the weak fall and the strong endure. A hush fell as the trial began. The floor of the arena split apart, revealing a maze of floating crystal platforms suspended above a deep abyss. Gravity shifted wildly in the chamber, one moment pulling left, the next pulling upward, then twisting downward. Zerathian warriors had trained in such environments since childhood, but Daniel had never experienced anything like it. As he stepped onto the first platform, his body jerked sideways. He fell to his knees, barely catching himself. The crowd roared, some cheering, others laughing at his clumsy movements. Daniel gritted his teeth. One step at a time. Don't give up. He crawled, stumbled, and pulled himself from one platform to the next. His muscles ached as he fought against invisible forces. At one point, he nearly slipped into the abyss, but he clung to the edge until his arms burned, then dragged himself upward. The nobles who had doubted him whispered with smirks. He will not last. But Princess Serenia, watching from the royal balcony, leaned forward. Her golden eyes followed him closely, searching not for perfection but for persistence. At last, bruised and shaking, Daniel reached the end. The crowd erupted, half in shock, half in admiration. He collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. The high priest declared, "The human has passed the first trial. Courage is shown not by ease but by refusal to surrender." The second trial, the puzzle of ages. The next day, Daniel was taken to the Hall of Reflection, a chamber filled with ancient crystal structures, each glowing with shifting light. "This is the trial of wisdom," the high priest announced. "Solve the puzzle of ages or be lost within its illusions." Daniel entered the maze of crystal. At once the walls shifted, creating endless pathways that shimmered with false doors and mirrored reflections. His own image stared back at him from every side, each one moving differently, confusing his senses. He tried one path, then another, but each led him back to the same place. Hours passed and frustration built inside him. Sweat dripped down his face. His mind screamed that it was impossible. Then he remembered something his mentor on Earth had told him. When you are lost in confusion, do not search harder. Step back and see differently. Daniel closed his eyes. He forced himself to breathe slowly, to quiet the panic in his heart. When he opened them again, he stopped looking at the walls. Instead, he focused on the floor. There, faint lines glowed, almost invisible, marking the true path. They had been there all along, hidden from sight by distraction. Step by step, he followed them. The mirrors tried to confuse him, showing him false exits, but he ignored them. At last, he emerged into the open, the real exit shining with pure light. The nobles murmured with surprise. Few had expected the human to succeed in the trial of wisdom. Princess Serenya's lips curved ever so slightly. For the first time, Daniel thought he saw approval in her eyes. The third trial, the choice of loyalty. The final trial was the most dangerous, not of body or mind, but of heart. It took place in the Chamber of Shadows, a place where the walls absorbed all light, leaving only flickers of flame. Daniel stood alone at the center as the high priest's voice echoed. This is the trial of loyalty. You must choose whom you will protect when faced with sacrifice. The wrong choice will doom you. The right choice will mark your bond. Shadows formed around him, shaping themselves into visions. On one side, Daniel saw a figure of Princess Serenya, chained and threatened by dark shapes. On the other side, he saw a vision of Earth, his home burning beneath alien fire. A voice whispered in his ear. You cannot save both, choose. Daniel's heart pounded. To choose Serenya would mean betraying Earth. To choose Earth would mean betraying his bond with the royal house. Either choice could end his place here forever. He closed his eyes. I choose neither, he said firmly. I will fight for both. I will not abandon Earth, and I will not abandon her. If destiny bound us, then I will find a way to protect all. The shadows hissed and pressed in. But Daniel stood firm, his fists clenched, his voice steady. Suddenly, the illusions broke. The flames flared bright and the shadows dissolved into mist. The chamber filled with a calm golden light. The high priest's voice rang with awe. He has passed. Loyalty is not measured by abandoning one for the other, but by refusing to forsake what the heart knows is right. The people's response. When Daniel emerged from the trials, the people of Zerathia were waiting. The arena thundered with voices, chanting his name, mixing human syllables with Zerathian tones. What had begun as doubt now shifted to belief. The king stood and raised his hand. The human has faced the trials. He has not faltered. The orb's choice is proven. Even the nobles who had doubted him fell silent. They could not deny what they had seen. Princess Serenya stepped forward and addressed the crowd. Her voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the arena. Destiny is not always clear, but today we have seen courage, wisdom, and loyalty. Whether he wished for it or not, the orb has chosen him, and so we must walk this path together. Her words silenced even the harshest critics, a private conversation. Later that evening, Daniel sat in the palace gardens once more, exhausted but alive. The air smelled of crystal flowers, their glow soft against the night. Princess Serenya approached him, her steps light but sure. She stood beside him for a long moment before speaking. You surprised me, she said softly. Daniel smiled faintly. That seems to be happening a lot lately. Her golden eyes studied him. You are not like the nobles here. You do not fight for power or for pride. That is unusual. Daniel shrugged. On Earth, we're taught to survive by working together. Maybe that is why the orb chose me. I don't know. Serenya tilted her head slightly. Perhaps. But know this, Daniel Carter. Destiny has not finished with us. The trials were only the beginning. Greater storms are coming. Daniel looked at her, the glow of the flowers reflecting in his eyes. Then we'll face them together. For the first time, Serenya allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Closing of Part 4. Far above the palace, the twin moons of Zerathia glowed. The trials were over, but the true test was yet to come. For beyond the peaceful skies, shadows moved, enemies who had watched from afar, waiting for their chance. The prophecy had been awakened, and with it, so had the forces that sought to destroy it. Daniel Carter, once a simple guest at a wedding, had proven himself in the eyes of a world. But destiny was not finished with him. The storm of war was coming. The Empire celebrated for 3 days after Daniel's success in the Trials of Unity. Crystals lit the sky with dazzling colors, and songs echoed through the streets of Zarethia's great cities. Yet beneath the joy unease lingered. The prophecy spoke of unity, but it also spoke of shadows, and shadows had begun to move. Reports came from the edge of the Empire. Outposts destroyed, ships vanishing, villages burned. The name whispered by survivors chilled even the bravest warriors. The Droxar Dominion. They were a rival species, long silent, now returning with fleets darker than the void. They sought to conquer, to enslave, and above all to prevent the prophecy from uniting Zerathia and Earth. King Varen called his council. Daniel stood at the table of shining crystal beside Princess Serenia. Holograms showed Droxar fleets advancing. Their ships were vast, shaped like serrated blades cutting through space like predators. The Droxar will not stop, the king said gravely. They come to break us before this unity can rise. If we fall, Earth may be next. Daniel felt a chill. Earth was far, but not unreachable. If Zerathia fell, humanity would face the same fate. He clenched his fists. He could not allow it. Preparing for war, armies gathered in the capital. Soldiers trained in the courtyards, their silver armor reflecting the suns. Warships docked in the orbital stations, their cannons glowing with plasma fire. But even with all their strength, many feared they could not stand against the endless waves of Droxar. Daniel walked among the soldiers, speaking with them, encouraging them. Though he was not a general, his trials had earned their respect. When he spoke, they listened. One night, as he walked through the garden again, Princess Serenia joined him. She wore no royal jewels, only simple silver robes. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed worry. "They will test us soon," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "We'll face them. Together." She looked at him for a long moment. "Do you believe in destiny, Daniel Carter?" He thought about it. "I don't know, but I believe in choice, and I choose to stand with you." Her golden eyes softened. Then perhaps that is what destiny truly is, the choices we refuse to abandon. The first battle. The Droxar came without mercy. Their fleets appeared in the skies like storms of steel. The ground trembled as their dropships poured warriors onto the surface. The Zerathian army met them in the plains of fire, a land of red stone and glowing rivers of energy. Daniel stood with the soldiers, carrying only a plasma rifle given by the king. The battle was chaos. Droxar warriors were massive, armored in black plates, their weapons shrieking with unnatural energy. Zerathian soldiers fought bravely, their crystal-forged blades shining against the darkness. Daniel fought as best he could. He was not the strongest, but he refused to fall. He fired again and again, covering comrades, pulling the wounded to safety. At one point, a Droxar nearly struck him down, but Princess Serenia appeared, her blade flashing with golden fire. Together they stood back to back, driving the enemy away. Though the Zerathians fought fiercely, the Droxar forces pressed them hard. When the dust settled, the plains were covered with ash and ruin. Both sides had lost much, but the Droxar still advanced. The call for unity. In the council chamber that night, the nobles argued. Some cried for retreat, others demanded surrender. Fear spread like poison. Daniel stood tall and faced them. "If you surrender now, the Droxar will not spare you. They will take everything. But if you stand together, Zerathia and Earth, then we have a chance. Alone we fall. United we rise." His words carried power. They were simple, but they struck hearts. The king looked upon him and nodded. For centuries the prophecy was only a tale, King Varen declared, but now it breathes. "We will not bow. We will call upon Earth. Let this unity begin." A message was sent across the stars, faster than light to Earth. For the first time, humans and Zerathians would prepare for war together. Earth's arrival weeks later. The skies above Zerathia shone with new lights, Earth's fleet. Human ships, smaller but fast and clever, entered orbit. Their designs were different from Zerathian vessels, but they carried determination within every hull. Daniel stood on the landing bay as the first human soldiers arrived. They saluted him with pride, recognizing the man who had become a bridge between worlds. Together, humans and Zerathians trained, learning each other's weapons and tactics. Bonds grew quickly. Soldiers shared meals, stories, and laughter, realizing they were not so different. Princess Serenia watched this with hope. The prophecy is alive, she whispered. The final battle, the siege of Zerathia. The Droxar came in full force. Their armada darkened the skies, a storm without end. The Empire trembled as alarms rang across the capital. This was the final battle. The siege of Zerathia. The Zerathian palace became the command center. Daniel stood beside the king, Serenia, and human generals. The plan was dangerous, but their only chance. Humans would strike the enemy's command ship while Zerathians held the ground against endless waves. The battle began with fire. The sky lit with burning ships, explosions painting the heavens. On the ground, the streets of the capital became rivers of light and death. Daniel fought among the soldiers, refusing to stay behind. He moved from street to street, rallying those who faltered. Princess Serenia led the royal guard, her blade shining like a beacon. Together they inspired hope even in despair. High above, human ships pierced through the enemy fleet, breaking lines with fearless speed. At last they reached the Droxar flagship, a colossal vessel radiating black energy. A desperate battle raged inside. Daniel knew he could not stand aside. He joined a strike team that boarded the enemy flagship. Inside, the halls were filled with shadows and echoes. The Droxar leader awaited them, towering and armored, his voice deep as thunder. "You are the star-born guest," he growled at Daniel. "You should not exist. The prophecy ends here. The fight was brutal." The leader struck with power that shook the ship itself. Daniel fought with everything he had, though his strength was small compared to the monster before him. But he did not fight alone. Serenia was there, her blade singing with light. Human and Zerathian warriors stood beside him, refusing to yield. At the final moment, Daniel seized a fallen weapon and struck with desperate force, aided by Serenia's blade. Together, they pierced the Droxar leader's core. The dark giant roared, then fell, his armor shattering like glass. The flagship began to collapse, fire consuming its hulls. The team escaped just in time, returning to their ships as the enemy fleet broke apart in chaos. Victory and unity. The Droxar retreated, their armada shattered, their leader fallen. Zerathia was saved. Earth was saved. When Daniel and Serenia returned to the capital, the people filled the streets, their cheers echoing across the city. Flowers of crystal rained from balconies, glowing in every color. The king stood before the crowd and raised his hand. The prophecy has been fulfilled. Unity has come not by force but by choice. Earth and Zerathia stand as one. He turned to Daniel. "And you who came as a guest have become more than family. You are part of this empire now." Princess Serenia stepped forward, her golden eyes shining. She took Daniel's hand, not as duty but as truth. "The prophecy united us. But it is not prophecy that binds us, it is trust." The crowd roared in approval. A new beginning. Weeks later, the war was over and peace began to grow. Humans and Zerathians worked side by side, building together, sharing knowledge and dreams. Daniel walked through the gardens once more, the same place where his strange journey had begun. Serenia walked with him, the night sky glowing with twin moons and distant Earth ships orbiting above. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "That you came here, that destiny took you from your world?" Daniel looked at her, then at the stars. "No, because if I had not come, I would never have found this. A new family, a new world. And you," she smiled, her hand tightening around his. "Then the prophecy was never about fate. It was about finding what we could build together." Above them, the stars shone brighter than ever, no longer distant, no longer separate. Humanity had proven itself. The guest who once attended an alien wedding had become the bridge between worlds, and together they had carved a new destiny.